It's time for a Drummer Nation. Jim Payne has a long career as a drummer, educator, producer, and collaborator with the best musicians in jazz and funk. Jim has performed with Maceo Parker, Fred Wesley, Pee Wee Ellis, Michael Brecker, Dave Liebman, and the Radio City Music Hall Orchestra. Currently, he is a member of the online faculty at Berklee College of Music. He now lives in Monterey, California, where he concentrates on teaching and performing, and has a new online teaching course in which he works directly with students from all over the world.
Created specifically for practice sessions, quiet tone practice cymbals by Sabian are designed to respond and feel like traditional cymbals, right down to their clearly defined bell, so the drummers won't have to change the way they play. Quiet tone practice cymbals by Sabian.
I absolutely love playing drums, and I couldn't imagine not having that in my life. And I really, if I could help facilitate that and have an impact on your life so that you can play drums, that means the world to me.
When seated at the drums, pressure on the tailbone, lower back, and hip joints can lead to pain. Only Carmichael drum thrones are scientifically designed to relieve and prevent discomforts associated with prolonged sitting. Carmichael thrones, we got your back.
Created specifically for practice sessions, quiet tone practice cymbals by Sabian are designed to respond and feel like traditional cymbals, right down to their clearly defined bell, so the drummers won't have to change the way they play. Quiet tone practice cymbals by Sabian.
Jim Payne, welcome to Drummer Nation, and thank you for doing my show. How are you, sir?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you, Michael, for having me on, yeah.
Oh, it's my honor. I first came into awareness of you in the 80s, I think. I used to teach out of one of your books, a funk drumming book.
Aha, all right, yeah.
And I've known you by reputation, but we've never met, so it's my honor to meet you at last.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I've written about, 6 books over the years, various biographies and different stuff, and that book is the bestseller, the first one,
Well, that's the magic. That's good. But I will ask you about all those books in a few minutes. I like to get a little background on everybody. How did you come up and start playing in the first place?
Well, let's see. I mean, at home, my mother played the piano, and they said somebody's got to play an instrument. So I said okay, and I saw this guy playing the accordion at school, in 8th grade or something, and it looked like he used like a whole band, sounded like a whole band. So I said okay, I'll do that. So I got the accordion. I was in Bridgeport, Connecticut, and there was a big Polish community and a lot of accordions. So I started studying the accordion, and then I got into a band that was with 100 accordions. It was part of the school. It was the craziest thing, And we were playing this song called "Wedding of the Winds," and everybody was going up and down, just crazy stuff. And one thing I realized there was that you could not play and nobody would know. If you didn't know the piece, there was 100 people playing stuff. But anyway, I wasn't a very good student, and I really didn't take to it that much. And then so my teacher gave me over to her son, who also played the drums, and he would play in his practice pad while I was supposed to be practicing during the lesson. And I thought, well, that looks like something that's a lot more fun than what I'm doing. And right then is, when rock and roll hit, basically, big time. And my brother got a Fats Domino record. I think it was "Ain't That a Shame" or something. And, I just played that over and over again. And I said, man, this is it, So I got a little pad and sticks and just started playing on my own, listening to records. And then I had some buddies who put a band together, and I traded in the accordion, got the drums, and it opened up the drum set, and we had a rehearsal. So I had no idea what was happening, really. The drums, I didn't even tune. I didn't know how to tune the drums. They were like all flappy and everything. They loved it. They thought it was great. They didn't know anything else more than I did. And we started doing doo-wop music. It was called the Deltrons. And we started playing parties and, church things and whatever. And then I got, more and more into it, and eventually got into R&B and whatever, more stuff.
That's great that you had a gig before you could really play.
Yeah, I know. When I look back on it, I think, man, the people didn't seem to mind, I just kind of played some kind of groove, and they were dancing, So
Yeah,
I said,
well, that's the beauty of that age too, and coming at it from that way, where you're working on groove first and foremost.
yeah,
I think it was that way with me. I think it's that way with a lot of drummers. You sit down at somebody's kit and you go within a matter of seconds. This is for
yeah,
me. I love this.
yeah. And I like to dance. I was a big dancer, and now I think even more so. There's a lot of dance concepts in playing the drums, where you're really kind of you got your butt sort of on the seat and you're kind of moving to the rhythm. And if you can connect with that, that's great. I mean, look at all the drummers. I mean, Steve Gadd was a dancer, Buddy Rich was a dancer. A lot of great drummers also were into dance too.
It's a poetry of motion in any event.
Yeah,
So that
yeah.
stands to reason with tying the
We're
drum to
translating
dancing.
that into the drums, and then that goes out to the people.
Exactly. So your first early influences were funk drummers, rock drummers, jazz drummers.
Well, my father had this, he had some big band records, Benny Goodman, Gene Krupa, and I had this Buddy Rich EP, with him playing some incredible solo. I used to listen to it. I had no idea what the hell it was. I still don't know what the hell it was. But it was kind of, it was flashy and interesting, But then when I got to New Orleans stuff, Little Richard and Fats Domino, which I now know was Earl Palmer on a lot of that stuff, that's the stuff that just got me going and couldn't stop, just couldn't stop playing, So I would say, unknown, he was one of my early influences, for sure, Earl Palmer. And then, and I actually saw some guys in New York at the Alan Freed shows and the rock and roll shows. I'm trying to think of who that guy was. Maybe I'll remember. But a show drummer, really backed up all the groups that came through and was really, really tight.
Hey everybody out there in cyber world, this is Adam Nussbaum.
Hi, Dave DeCenzo here.
Hi, Bermuda Schwartz here.
Hey everyone, Stanton Moore here.
Hey guys, Johnson Pesta here.
Hey everybody, this is John J.R. Robinson.
Hi, Todd Zuckerman here for the Drum Center of Portsmouth. They're knowledgeable, they'll be able to help you and guide you and make the right choices for you and the music that you play.
From Wingnut to Wuhan, these chaps know what they're talking about. Highly recommend it. But what do I know? I'm a drummer.
So how did you learn reading?
Ha! That's a good question. I didn't, actually. For a long time, I played with bands that we never had. All the way through high school and then college, I was in bands, and we just put on the records and learned the tunes and rehearsed and got them together. I never read music, and I was always like, oh dear, I don't know how to read music. But finally, after I really got into it in college, and then I got out of college and decided to make it my career, then I went into New York. I was living out in Connecticut at that time. I went into New York and started studying. And I studied with Sonny Igoe, who was Tommy Igoe's dad, and Henry Adler. And I took a correspondence course in Berkeley, actually, where I just finished a chat with Berkeley now. I teach there online. But they taught me how to read. Boom, boom. We went through we went through the Buddy Rich book for the rudiments and everything, but also Louis Belson's Modern Reading in 4/4.
Yeah, that's a great book.
Digested that, completely with Sonny Igoe, very slowly going through the whole thing, and that's how I learned to read.
So I think it's great that you came at it from a groove perspective, from a music perspective first, and then picked up rudiments, polishing up your hands, learning how to read. Given all those things in the equation, the groove is the most important, right?
Right. I do think so. I mean, if you feel it and you want to move and you like the motion back and forth, that is the most important thing. And then it's just a question of translating that, and working with the music. If the music requires reading, and if you want to be a pro, you have to do that. That's part of the deal. But I mean, I've heard people playing, pretty high class gigs, Broadway, whatever, and they could read anything, but frankly, they don't groove. And they play everything perfectly and everything, but where's the groove? I was fortunate. I did a stint at Radio City, and with the Rockettes and all that, and I felt really good that Rockettes really liked me, because I had I was struggling with the music. I had it, I figured it out, I memorized it, but I had a good groove, and they said they could dance to it. So.
Well, at the end of the day, a reading mistake is inconsequential compared to following up the groove. Especially if you're a dancer on stage listening.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you cover up the reading mistakes. And
sure,
nobody knows,
And you're only reading a few times anyway, right? Eventually you know the show, especially if it's a show that you play every night. Now, as you became more educated, you became aware of more drummers, I presume. Who were some of your other earlier influences and heroes?
Well, one of the first guys I studied was a guy named Jim Strasberg, who's probably not that well known, but he was a local guy in Connecticut, and he got me going. He had studied with Jim Chapin, and we did some rudiments and stuff, and he was a great jazz drummer and a great funk drummer, and he's still around down in Florida. Played with Dave Leaton and a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. I mean, obviously, Mike Clark, I got to know Mike, and he was a very big influence. And of course, David Garibaldi. Fortunately, I was able to know him as well, and still do. Fantastic influence. And then in the jazz world, of course, Max Roach and Philly Joe Jones, who I took some lessons from. He was amazing. Shelly Manne, and especially Elvin Jones. I mean, Elvin is my man in terms of the jazz thing and the feel and digesting of the groove and all that. He's the cat.
I would agree. If I'm on a desert island for the rest of my life with one drummer, it's going to be Elvin Jones.
That's great. I feel the same way. I fortunately got to shake his hand, hang out with him once in the dressing room, and that was a.
I got to meet him once too, and several times. But the last time I met him, he was at a signing thing, and what are you going to say to him? You play good, So I said, Elvin, I love you, man. And he said, me too, brother. And he held my hand, and it was a very nice moment, But I couldn't think of anything else to say that was significant other than I love you.
Man. That's perfect.
Thank you. I love you. So he's one of my all-time heroes.
I think what our cymbals brought to the Sabian family is that there is lots more hand hammering. They're all hand hammered, and so you really have to perfect the hammering technique and where to hammer on the cymbal. You don't want to get the cymbal too thin in a lot of places. They were willing to try it, and I think we came out with a great product that is a great musical instrument.
You began working with some notable leaders pretty soon after going to New York, right?
Right. Well, the whole thing, I went to New York and I studied, got my chops together and my reading together and all that. And then basically I formed a band with some other guys called Slickophonics. Ray Anderson, great trombone player, Mark Elias, and Al Jaffe and Steve Elson. It was kind of a horn band. It was sort of avant funk, we called it. There was Ray sang, but it wasn't a really vocal thing where you had more sort of instrumental stuff with the two horns really tight. And we did that for like five years, 5 records, and a lot of touring in Europe, mainly in Europe and also in the U.S. as well. I got to play with a lot of different people in different bands. I played in this band called Birdsong Band in New York, and that band had the Brecker Brothers, which was incredible. A guy named John Scholl, a great guitar player who unfortunately just passed away. And Pee Wee Ellis would come in and sit in for sub for Mike Brecker. Pee Wee Ellis being the guy who wrote Cold Sweat and James Brown's band leader. He had just left James Brown at the time. And so we got to be friends, and through him, I was able to, meet some other people. I played in various rock bands as well, a band called the Blues Magoos, which was pretty popular at that time. But the guys from the Birdsong Band and Pee Wee, through Pee Wee, got to meet Fred Wesley and then Maceo Parker as well.
Those are all James Brown guys.
Yeah, those are all James Brown guys who would basically they had led the band. Mm-hmm. Then I got out. I got out of college, and I was in New York and doing all that stuff. And then when the Slickophonics kind of broke up, I went down to Florida and worked in a studio called King Snake.
And you were producing there, right?
I was producing. I met Bob Greenlee was the bass player and the producer, the owner of the studio. He was a good buddy of mine from college, and for 3 years we produced and wrote studio stuff. You know, Rufus Thomas was there. A lot of blues cats. Actually, James Taylor came down to do some stuff with his brother Alex. We did some country, not too much, but you know, cranked out a lot of blues. Lucky Peterson was down there, did a lot of stuff with him. Kenny Neal, New Orleans guys, you know.
Now, did you go back to New York, or because I think we skipped the section where you were teaching at Drummers Collective, and
Oh yeah, right.
you were there for 10 years, right?
Yeah, I was.
And Drummers World with Barry.
Yeah, you know Barry.
Oh, sure, yeah. Modern Drum Shop, Manhattan School of Music. So you made this.
Yeah, right.
You made this. You made the jump into teaching at some point as well,
Yes,
right?
I did.
My new site, Stanton Moore Drum Academy, is the perfect online drum learning platform for any level drummer to learn how to play the drums the same way I did, with the advantage of having me road test the material on hundreds of stages, countless clinics, lessons, and master classes, and dozens of studio sessions every year. On the site, you'll find over 13 hours of video, dozens of written lessons, and fresh material gets added all the time.
I had always been teaching when I first started out, even, you know, when I moved to New York and lived in the East Village in my basement there, I always had a couple of students, and I was teaching them rock and funk and, you know, not reading so much, but you know, they were students that wanted to learn. So I started teaching, and then I built that up, and then got into Drummers Collective and worked there for a long time, and then also with Joe Cusadas and with Barry after was the last one I did before his store closed, but that was a lot of fun, you know, and I mean, Elvin would hang out there, and, you know, various people, Jimmy Cobb was there, and it was a real sort of a meeting point and a great spot. So, yeah, and then I started writing the books, you know, and what happened was I ended up living in a building on 46th Street, which was Henry Adler's building. Henry Adler was a great drum teacher, and he had a drum shop there. And upstairs, where they had studios, and Fred, Sonny Igo was up there, and some different people. Andrew Surreal was there, and I got a studio there. So I started teaching there seriously, and actually I lived upstairs, right above Henry Adler's studio. So he would start teaching at 9 in the morning, you know, with all snare drum. You know, he only had the snare drum. That was it, you know. And they'd be doing rudiments and blah, blah, blah. He had a pad, so I didn't really care that much, but it was a great spot to be, you know, and a lot of people.
Yeah,
you know,
because anybody would walk into there, right?
Yeah.
Almost anybody. Great famous drummers there all the time.
Oh, yeah. They hang out at the drum store downstairs, you know. And
I lived in L.A. in the 80s, and Pro Drum was that way. I mean, anybody could come in, and you could just make the scene and hang with the cats. It was, it's hard to find that these days. It's really nice.
I've heard of that place.
So how ironic that you went from a guy who was almost intimidated about reading to teaching and authoring books.
Yeah. Well, at the time, the funk thing was big, and that was my thing, you know. So, and there weren't any books on funk, and so I was, pretty organized, and had enough reading together. I wrote beats, and I could write any kind of beat. And so I sort of took it progressively, and I had a lot of students by that time, sort of got an idea of how to do it, and been through a lot of different books. And Henry Adler helped me a little bit, although he didn't publish the book. Mel Bay published the book, but I had been out. Actually, I'd been in California for a while. I moved out of New York after I was kind of playing some weird gig, playing gigs like the gig starts at midnight, it gets off at 4 o'clock, and it's in some that deep basement,
Yeah, I've done this.
I got out of there, almost daylight, and I'm saying, after I'd been in New York about 5-6 years, and I said, is this what I'm supposed to do? Is this why I'm here? I don't think so, So my buddy Jim Strasberg, who was my first teacher, had moved to California. He moved to San Rafael, and he said, hey, come on out. So I went out there and hung out for 3 years, playing a bunch of different gigs out there. And when I came back, I lived in Henry Adler's building, and that's when I wrote the first book. And I had a lot of experience, with playing funk at that time. And I'd done some tracks out in California, sort of play along type tracks to go with the book, and so there was quite a bit of material there, and I tried to, lay it out as best I could, and it was a good one because, as I said, there wasn't a lot out on funk in terms of studies of books,
I remember that period. I had studied in your book, and I went out to move to L.A. I studied with David Garibaldi, and he had his handouts. He didn't have any books then either, and that was about it out there. Guys would hand out, look, I just transcribed this from Gad, or here's a funk beat from James Brown or something, but from Clyde or Jabba. But there wasn't much out there. Your book served a real handy need way back then.
Man. Thank you very much. Wow.
So eventually you moved to Northern California. Is that where you live now?
No. Eventually, after 30 years in New York, I moved out here about 5 years ago.
But you're still teaching. You're involved with Berklee School of Music as a Berklee College of Music, I think it is, right?
Right.
I don't want to get that wrong. And,
upgraded to college.
Yeah, right. And you're teaching online drumming.
Right.
Or teaching drumming online, I should say.
Yeah, right.
How's that going?
It's going great. I just had a Skype session an hour ago. What happened? I'm the R&B and funk guy, and they have a couple other cats doing rock and Afro-Cuban. And it's been about 5 years, and I put the course together. It was a long process. It was about a year, and put all that together with a bunch of videos and went up there, and it works just like a college course. Each semester is 12 lessons, and we're on lesson 11 now this semester. And the students go through the stuff, and they do the exercises and everything, and they see a bunch of videos, and then they record usually 2 videos to tracks, and they send me those tracks on Sunday. I look at the tracks and make comments. I can do it audio comments. Mm-hmm. And then we have one session a week, like a Skype session like we're doing now. And it works great because the students are really motivated. They pay their dough and they want to learn. And I get them, like I'd say half are young, well in their 20s, that have an idea of, being a career of drums, really into it. And then half are older folks who have, played drums in the past and kind of want to get back into it, Mm-hmm. So it's a difference in demographics. But I've had students from Hong Kong, Taiwan, France, Italy, Germany, the Faroe Islands.
The whole world.
Yeah, as well as all of the U.S.
Right. So when they're studying with you through Berklee, is it for college credit? They're enrolled in the school?
Yeah, well, they're enrolled. They can take it for credit or not take it for credit, but a lot of them do, and it counts towards their college degree. I have a guy now who's now going to Berklee physically after this course, and he will get credit for what he's already done with me in the online arena.
That's terrific.
Really
technology is amazing these days. That you can do that as a college credit for a school on the other side of the country, or that we can talk this way. I can do television, TV, web TV kind of stuff this way. Let me ask you the question I ask all the great educators I get to talk to. It's the 800-pound gorilla in the room. We all came up, I'm 62. We all came up of an age when there were gigs galore, and we all kind of see there's fewer and fewer of that. Of working opportunities. The recording industry is kind of in the dumper. Drum shops are closing. I don't want to sound too negative. I'm still very positive. That's why we do these things, right? But on the other hand, what do we tell these kids coming through school? How do we prepare them to deal with the musical professional world they're going to be facing?
That is the big question. I know. My buddy David, I can't think of his name, who's the head of NYU Music, he says that he's teaching students life skills. Mm-hmm. So in other words, he gets around the fact that there aren't that many gigs, by you're going to get something out of this anyway. You're going to learn how to study, you're going to learn how to organize yourself, you're going to not learn how to go out there and get a gig. All those are, skills that can be applied to different things. Mm-hmm. I'm encouraged, to some extent, in the fact that number one, there are a lot of students who do want to learn how to play the drum set and not, tap on keys and make beats, you know. And second of all, it seems like the good stuff that the history of music that's been developing over the years, that the cream rises to the top, and that young people, you know, in their 20s or whatever, they want to hear about Tony Williams, or they want to hear, you know, about Max Roach. They want to find out, you know, what was Charlie Parker doing. So it's not like, you know, that's going to pass. That's going to be there. It's a question of, you know, music is getting institutionalized. Let's face it. I mean, look at Lincoln Center. There's the San Francisco Center here. And that's where the sort of more artistic stuff goes. It's a little, you know, good and bad because, you know, I mean, I'm not so wild about some of the presentations of Lincoln Center. It seems like kind of, you know, certain way, you know, where are the cats that can go to the small joints and do whatever they want, and then the people dig it because they understand they're doing passionately what they want to do.
Well, you have both, right?
It is hard. It is hard.
Yeah.
There's only certain things. If you want to make money. Okay, so you join the wedding band. You go to New York and you try to get into the Broadway scene. You know, you be a show drummer. You travel on the road with different shows. If you're really good, you know, then you start to get some studio work. But the studio work is really, you know, going down. It's a tough one, Mike. I just, you know, what do I tell them? I basically say, do what you want to do. If you're passionate about this and you want to do it, do it. I'm not going to say, hey man, there's not much work, so you better get out of it. You know?
No, you answered the question. And let's think about the old cats, man, in the 30s and 40s. They weren't thinking, what kind of career is this going to be? You know, they did it because they had to, because they loved it, because it was part of who they were.
Yeah.
And let the chips fall where they may. But you're either in or you're out, you know. And I think kids will come up with new ways to do stuff, and who knows what the future holds. There's always going to be music and good drummers coming up.
I like to think that people like to see musicians on the stage interacting in the moment in a natural, you know, passionate way, as opposed to, you know, lots of drama and lights and machines and, you know, music being canned, as we used to say, you know,
there's
not being played by people.
There's a place for everything. Even in New York, where you talk about Lincoln Center, it's what Mercedes-Benz sponsors it, and it gets pretty corporate. But you still have Smalls. You know, you still have.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite places. Right? And the 55 bar. I mean, yeah, that's it. You know, and that's some great stuff, man. You know, it's been playing there. Those kids are passionate, and now even, you know, older cats are playing there too. That's the deal. Whenever anybody goes to New York, I say, go to those places, you know.
Catch the whole thing.
Yeah, that's the deal. You know, that's exciting.
So I would take it that you're optimistic about the future of this music.
Oh, yeah.
And drumming.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, there's always people, you know, finding out new stuff and playing new things and, you know, doing it backwards and, you know.
There are kids coming up doing more stuff with their feet than I can do with my hands.
Absolutely. I started into that. I had 2 bass drums way back when, you know. I did a few little diddits, but now it's like, forget it.
It's not my thing, but, you know, I recognize it. It's great, and there's plenty of guys doing cool new stuff.
And playing the clave with the left foot and, the, you know, and then playing everything else, you know.
Yeah.
It's like
so let's talk about you. You have a great website, by the way. I was there
thank you.
over the last week or so, and there's a lot of great information. I'll put the link in the video and in the notes. And there's a cool blog you write. I appreciate that.
All right, yeah, it's fun. I got a lot more stuff now. I got to get on there, you know. But yeah.
But it's not just, you know, I'm playing here tomorrow. It's your thoughts and experiences about being a working artist and teacher and offering insight.
That's what I'm trying to do.
Which I appreciate.
All right.
One little quote I saw I wanted to mention to you: 2% jazz, 98% funk.
Yeah, that's
Tell me where that came from.
That's Maceo Parker. He, you know, I was fortunate to do a couple of tours with the JV Horns, which is Maceo, Fred Wesley, and Pee Wee Ellis. We did 2 records, and we toured with that. And you know, Maceo keeps going. He's unbelievable energy. That guy, man, he's just crazy. But he would say when we were playing, he says, what we're going to do, you know, 2% jazz and 98% funk, and people love it, and it's instrumental music, really. I mean, he sings, and so the JB sang, but they were gonna have a funky good time, and then basically everybody can sing that, right? I mean, it's like, so they were getting across on the music, and so it was great experience.
Yeah, melodicism was not the strong point of that, but
Right.
that's okay. There's room for everything, and that music sure makes you move and dance.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time to talk with us.
Hey.
Anything else you want to float out there before I let you go?
Well, I've now transferred the rights and the format of most of my books. Give the Drummer Some, which has a new life, and also the new Tito Puente book, which I did quite a while ago with Tito Puente about Latin music and the drum set, and my advanced funk drumming are all now digital, online, and they're also hard copy online on Amazon. So I throw that out there, and you can get those through the website, and that's been a great boon, because those things now you can order it from somewhere else, and Amazon will print it up on demand and send you a hard copy.
Isn't that great?
Or you can get the the digital version. So that's been a lot of fun, and I have my own private online teaching courses.
That's what I wanted to ask you. So somebody can study with you without going through the auspices of Berkeley, right?
Absolutely. Yep. They just have to contact me through the website. I'll send you a sample lesson at jazz and funk, and you can get all the information, get an idea what it's like,
Well, you're 100% contemporary in today, man.
Well, I think I just got on it in time, like I'm happy, I'm really happy about it. It's great.
That's how I feel. Neither one of us are spring chickens, but you got to stay hip. You got to stay with it and on top of today, and you certainly are doing so. I encourage everybody to go to your website. The educational material is outstanding. If you don't, when you're there, if you don't know any of the drummers that Mr. Payne is talking about, find out who they are. You need to know that.
Yeah. And I have to appreciate and congratulate you, Mike, for doing this show and keeping everything alive and
thank you,
and putting it out there to new people.
Well, I appreciate that. I got started in the video thing when I had my cymbal company because I could market that way, and then I sold the company to Sabian. I thought I love doing these videos. Why don't I get some drummers on record and maybe somebody in 100 years will care about what we had to say.
Yeah, of course it will. No, it's archived, and plus, I think it's great. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. It's been my honor to interview you, and I'll be talking to you soon.
Okay, great,
all right,
man. Thanks a lot.
And don't come down south here without letting me know, all right? I'm in Atlanta.
All right. Okay.
All right, brother. Take care.
All right, Mike. Thanks a lot.
This is your host, Michael Vosbine, and I'd like to thank our friends at Sabian Cymbals, Sound Synergies, Stanton Moore Drum Academy, and Drum Center of Portsmouth. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.